Morning, everybody. Getting an early start today because I am anxious to watch the inaugural activities and the meltdown the left is going to have. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. But today in hand, thanks to my boy Tony, we've got exclusive documents, FOIA'd, for this show. So, the FOIA, the 6 that we have, are all on a subject brought to our attention by Mr. Kerry Thornley, but that has numerous points of intersection, both with Oswald's life in the Marines and Kerry Thornley's life after the Marines. So, Buddy Allen Simcoe, Kerry Thornley, in his 50-page affidavit to Garrison, which, in my opinion, is mostly a confession, but you can't come out right and say, hey, I was part of a plot to murder the president. You go right to fucking jail. So how do you tell Garrison that you were involved and you know everything and you're going to tell him everything, but you really don't know anything because you don't want to go to prison, right? That's what the 50-page affidavit from Kerry Thornley was. Kerry Thornley sticks himself in the middle of the action, right between Guy Bannister, Jack Martin, David Ferry, Carlos Marcello, and then his 2 mysterious friends, Gary Kirsten, a.k.a. brother-in-law. And, what's the other guy's name? It'll come up as we go forward. So, we're going to start off today with these documents, and then we're going to move on to Buddy Allen Simcoe's own writing. For some reason, people involved in this, at whatever level, however minimal, felt the need to write a book about their involvement. Everybody did it. Kerry Thornley, Thomas Beckham, Buddy Simcoe, a whole bunch of more people. So, but why? They felt the need to insert themselves into the story, right? And as we shall see, the insertion of oneself into the story goes all the way back to the beginning of the assassination, which makes me question the knowledge that some of these people had. You see, I believe that some people can be handling a person, and yet, like a CIA agent can handle a person, and then that person is being pushed in another direction by another handler, right? So you can be a long-term manager of a person, because Oswald, I'm sure, had long-term managers, the people associated with 2220 Thomas Place and 126 Exchange Place, and a couple addresses associated with the Oswalds, right? But for some reason, these people inserting themselves into the story kind of tells me that they were very minimally involved, right? And that if Simcoe was involved here with Thornley as a handler of some sorts, or a monitor, or someone who's keeping tabs, you would think that he wouldn't be writing a book about it, right? So, but then again, these people are arrogant and stupid, and so I don't know why Simcoe made the decisions he did. But Simcoe, over the past, I became aware of him probably 2 to 3 years ago, and was never able to find anything. And it's only been the last, year or so that Buddy Simcoe's writings and documents on him have come to light and put in perspective what was going on with him after Kerry Thornley left the Marines in 1960. So they were friends, and Buddy Simcoe and Thornley and Oswald were all together at the MACS 9 station in Santa Ana. Now, to clarify, for those of you who are not familiar, you will read very often that Lee Harvey Oswald was stationed as a radar operator at El Toro, California. This is blatantly false, okay? So just a real quick recap of Oswald's time in California after coming back from Atsugi. So he leaves Atsugi. Let me see. He is out of his unit by October 27th. He's on the boat November 2nd. He's back in Hawaii November 22nd. Then he gets back to California. He goes on leave, and he will end up being back at Santa Ana December 20. It was either the 26th or the 28th, but either way, it was that last couple days of December where he's actually reporting for duty in Santa Ana. Many people will say he went to El Toro. He didn't go to El Toro. El Toro was 6 miles away. Okay, so you have El Toro as a main base, and then you have the Santa Ana lighter than air station 6 miles away, which was a helicopter base. Okay, so when we're talking about Oswald at Santa Ana, we're talking about him at MACS 9, which was stationed at the lighter than air station. Now, we have a handful of people who will attest to various interviewers that they were stationed those last couple months with Oswald at El Toro, where he was on mess duty. Okay? This is the theme in Oswald's fucking life. The guy was never a radar operator, so the story, the myth of him being a radar operator needs to die. Nobody can put him behind a radar unit ever. The closest we get is that he is, and Jack Swike confirmed this in his book, The Missing Chapter on Oswald, that Oswald was I forget what the board is called, but it's the clear board where they stick the little things on. Like the radar operators call out information, and then it's marked on this clear board by the dude standing there, right? That's what Oswald did. Oswald didn't sit at a radar station, so that's more mythology surrounding him. But Oswald, post-December 1958, is in Santa Ana. But in the first couple months, this is where things get a little weird. He's working in Santa Ana. Then you have in February and March, he will do a couple of things. He'll go through a number of routine exercises, one of which being at Yuma, Arizona. Another one being at San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a couple of weeks between February and March that he's not at Santa Ana and that he is out at these exercises. On top of that, this is the time in which he does his GED testing stuff and takes the Russian exam. And this all wraps up by like the last week of March. Okay. Then, at the last week of March, he is then back in Santa Ana, and this is the starting point, really, for the Osvaldovich and, all the Russian stuff and the really gung-ho, I'm a communist. It really started in this last week of March of 1959. So prior to that, you have a couple indications that he talked about communism, like he had possibly gained an understanding or started to be curious about it. The first popping up of this is in Stanley, North Dakota, if that account can be verified ever. And there's a couple other times when he's talking about communism, or at least we're told he was. All the stuff with Richard Wolff, or William Wolff, and Palmer McBride, right? They said he was talking about communism then, but that situation is sketch, which we've talked about before, and we'll talk about much more again in the future. But really, Oswald's communist persona began sometime around the last week of March in Santa Ana, California, right? And that's where you have Nelson Delgado, Buddy Simcoe, Kerry Thornley, Mac Osborne. Who else? Those are the primary names that come to mind of people who spent time out there in Santa Ana with Oswald. But it's funny because I've gotten pretty close to Oswald leaving for the Soviet Union and absorbed all the data up until that point, but I'm still sorting it. I'm still trying to debraid this hair. And it's it's more of a process of getting over your own mental roadblocks than laying the stuff out and finding out what really happened. Because I sit down to some of the stuff and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to start sorting, and I sit down and 10 minutes later my brain is like, derp to derp. Nope, I don't think so, not today. Because it is mentally intensive. But back to MACS 9 Santa Ana and Buddy Simcoe. In the letter, the affidavit that Kerry Thornley wrote to Jim Garrison, he said, if anyone was my intelligence, quote-unquote, babysitter, it was this guy, Buddy Simcoe. And he reported to a guy named Lieutenant Ballantyne. I've been able to track down both of these people. It took me a while. It took me at least 6 months to be able to track down anything on Buddy Simcoe. And then Lieutenant Ballantyne, I just identified recently because his name popped up in a roster associated with the crew out at MACS 9. So, but we're not going to talk about Ballantyne today. I haven't really done any digging into him at all. But Buddy Simcoe, let me see. We got 6 new FOIA documents. And then we have... Then I'm going to read some Tripping Down Memory Lane, which is part of the book that he wrote. I don't think it was ever published. I mean, if anyone's got a hardcover copy of this or a softcover copy of this, I'll pay handsomely for it. But I think it was just like released small time. All right, let me see the first document. Thanks again, Tony, for digging these up. And these are in no particular order. The first one always has the cover sheet, best copy available, National Archives. It's always funny because I've seen this before on document stacks, best available copy, and then I'll see a better copy somewhere else. So they don't really give a fuck about the quality. The worse, the better for them. All right, so we have a cover sheet here. HSCA record number 1801003010203. Agency file number, it must be FBI, 105-82555-363. Originator, FBI. Date, 11/26/63. Subjects. Multiple subjects here and a couple names I'm not familiar with. Subjects. Lee Oswald. Buddy Allen Simcoe. And then Russian language. And then Edward Stallknecht. Stallneckt. Edward Stallknecht. Never heard that name before. And then James W. Pritchett. This one's a little more ambiguous. Pritchett. And then Lieutenant Michael DePadro. DE space Padro. Lieutenant Michael DePadro. I've never heard that one before. You see, okay, so this is what I have to emphasize when it comes to documents and the old documents and stuff. This is the kind of shit that they hide, right? So there might be nothing in this document of any relevance to anything, but with the exception of the list of subjects. I'm giving a hypothetical. So under the list of subjects, this name Edward Stallknecht. Almost 7 years full-time research on this. I've never heard this name before, okay? Michael DePadro. Let me see, about, 6 months of research on Oswald and the Marines. Never seen this name before either. This is how information hides in plain sight, right? So this document itself on Buddy Simcoe might not have anything of any relevance whatsoever. But one of these fucking names, when cross-referenced, might have everything. It might lead you to a whole new area of research, right? So that is kind of how documents in the modern era need to be looked at with that kind of eye. Like the routing page is probably the most important fucking thing in the whole document, right? So, comments, memorandum with written message at bottom, box 2, folder title, section 6. And the quality of this is poor. All right, November 27th, 63, teletype. Background in handwritten. All right, so to director in SAC Dallas from SAC Los Angeles. Assassination of President John Kennedy, November 22 last, Dallas, Texas. Assaulting federal officer, Dallas. Reference in New Orleans teletype to director November, can't read that date, November 25, I think, 1963. Buddy Allen Simcoe, located military service, Santa Ana, November 25 last, advised in early 1958. He was in U.S. Marine Corps Air Control Squadron MACS number 9, Marine Corps Air Facility, MCAF. That was the different handle between El Toro and Santa Ana. El Toro was MCAS, which was Marine Corps Air Station, and Santa Ana was MCAF as in Frank, which is Marine Corps Airfield, which was like a subdivision of El Toro. See, that's why people often reference Oswald being at El Toro when he really was never at El Toro, except for the other people who saw Lee Oswald, not Harvey Oswald. But maybe we'll clarify that as we go on today or talk about that on another show, because I don't have the statements ready of those people who were with him at quote-unquote El Toro. Santa Ana and recalled Lee Harvey Oswald. Again, Lee Harvey Oswald has the circle above it between the Harvey and the Oswald. Was in S-3 operations, unit of MACS number 9 as a radar operator, not personal friends. Recalls no conversations with Oswald. You see, does anybody understand what the problem is here already? Has anybody caught the problem yet? Let me reread this paragraph and you tell me what the problem is. Buddy Allen Simcoe, located military service, Santa Ana, November 25 last. Advised in early 1958. He was in USMC Air Control Squadron, MACS number 9. Okay. Did I emphasize the problem enough? In early 1958, okay, in early 1958, Oswald was in fucking Philippines until March, right? So the truth of the matter is I can't tell if this is FBI obfuscation or what, because it was clearly 59. Like, nobody's even disputing it. It's fucking 59. And it was early 59, right? So why the fuck would they flub something like this? Because I promised you, Buddy Simcoe did not say 8. He was there with Lee Harvey Oswald in S-3 operations unit of MACS number 9 as a radar operator. So he's saying that they were in the S-3 operations unit. Okay, so make a mental note of this, the S-3 operations unit of MACS number 9. That's very important because it narrows down where Oswald would have been. Not personal friends, recalls no conversation with Oswald. Stated, however, it was common knowledge in their unit Oswald was studying Russian at the time. Related, Oswald allegedly had fair knowledge of Russian. Simcoe stated he witnessed Oswald practicing Russian on tape recorder once. Vaguely recalled Oswald subscribed to some Russian literature in Russian language. Identity of literature unknown. Stated Oswald received this literature in mail through Squadron-3 Operations Office, and a Lieutenant Michael DePadro of this unit upset by literature Oswald subscribing to, but that Oswald told Lieutenant it was used to practice Russian. Simcoe does not know DePadro's present whereabouts. He described Oswald as a self-contained, self-sufficient individual who lived unto himself and appeared to have no close associates. Simcoe stated a friend, Larry Dawson, has a brother, James W. Pritchett, a patrolman on Dallas on Grand Prairie, Texas Police Department. Simcoe recalled contacting Pritchett telephonically November 23 last, furnishing him foregoing information on Oswald. On November 26 last, Colonel W.L. Ablett, commanding... These are all brand new names to me, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to take note. On November 26 last, Colonel W.L. Ablett, A-B-B-L-E-T-T, commanding officer, MACS, Santa Ana, advised roster reflecting individuals formerly assigned to MACS number 9, same time as Oswald, maintained at Personnel Administration Office, Washington, D.C., can be obtained through Major Edward Stalnecki, personnel officer. He additionally advised file reflecting security clearance investigation concerning Oswald, maintained at headquarters, 11th Naval District, San Diego. Dallas advised Washington Field if roster of former members of MACS number 9 and their present whereabouts desired. Also advised San Diego if desired that file be reviewed there. Insert follow. WFO, that's Washington Field Office, and San Diego advised by airmail. End ACK PLS, hold PLS. To my knowledgeable former FBI friend out there, what is PLS just please? And ACK, end ACKPLS. Is that end acknowledged please? There we go. End acknowledged please. Let's see how good I am at interpreting FBI speak. All right. So then let me see. We have some handwritten notes at the bottom here. Supervisor George Tucher, Tucher, Washington Field Office, requested to identify Lieutenant Michael DePadro and set out something to have him interviewed. Looks like LUD. Send out LUD to have him interviewed. Need a definition on LUD, kind sir. At this time, and then it's signed. So interesting. Like I said, the most important thing about this document is the names in it, right? Because these names, when you go back and you check someone, let's say you'll take these names and then go research John Armstrong, and then you'll see where John Armstrong's research led him, and if he has a different set of names, right? So if you're being led in multiple paths, then it's pretty important to know that. So, all right, document number 2. Date 7/19/1993. So we're talking HSCA. Actually, that's ARRB. This HSCA was in the 70s. ARRB was in the 90s. Agency HSCA record number, and then agency file number 105-82555-1154, SAC New Orleans. Subjects: Lee Oswald. Kersey Thankey. What the fuck name is that? Is that a misinterpretation of Kerry Thornley? Kersey Thanky, Thanky. Kersey Thanky is what it says. Diana, if you want to check if that's a real person, feel free. And then Bud Simcoe, and then another one, Charles Weir. It's another new one to me. Charles Weir, W-I-E-R. Document type: memorandum, unclassified, opened in full. Date of last review: 5/26/1993. Just a reminder, these are absolute exclusive documents to Corey Hughes' Bloody History, thanks to my boy Tony and the FOIA request. Teletype: November 29th, 1963. Director: to the director at SACS Dallas and Los Angeles. Assassination of the President. Associates of Lee Harvey Oswald. Kerry Wendell Thornley, Marine Corps, serial number 167334, advised that he knew Lee Harvey Oswald for a period of 3 or 4 months in 1959, when, actually it was more like 6 weeks. So, when both stationed at El Toro Marine Base, California. Oswald described as, quote, lone wolf, unquote, type of individual who never associated with other members of Marine Corps and had a few close friends. Oswald never discussed background or family. Oswald did express admiration for Soviet form of government and spoke Russian and believed to have studied Russian while stationed in Japan in Marine Corps. Thornley stated his association with Oswald at the Marine base terminated suddenly when he told Oswald that Thornley was a, quote, communist and that things would be different when the revolution came, unquote. Oswald made the statement, quote, not you too, unquote, and turned around and left. Thornley never associated with or talked to Oswald again after this. Well, until he got to New Orleans. Charles Weir, phonetic, who were in 9th Marine Air Control Squadron during 1959, might have info re Oswald. Okay, Charles Weir, important name because we've never come across it before. Charles Weir, W-I-E-R, shit. You know why I'm saying shit? Because now I have to go through every one of these. You know how many times I've been through these fucking Marine diaries? Jesus Christ. I have been through these fucking Marine diaries like 10 times looking for different things, and now I gotta have to go through it all again. Thornley stated only knowledge of Oswald since 1959 was through the news media. He stated he made a draft of a book concerning members of the armed forces who had gone to Russia after being discharged and later returned to the United States. He stated that he did not have Oswald in mind when he started a draft of this book, but that in view of recent activities of Oswald, he was thinking about using Oswald's background as the central theme of the book. Thornley stated he left New Orleans, Louisiana, May 1 last by Trailways bus, proceeded to Whittier, California. What year is this? Okay, all right, so he's telling the truth so far. Thornley stated he left New Orleans, May 1 last by Trailways bus, proceeded to Whittier, California, where he visited his parents for a short period of time and met with Lauren Hall, remember? He then proceeded by bus to Tijuana, Mexico, and Mexico City, where he stayed for a short period of time. He then returned to the United States by bus through Matamoros, Mexico, and arrived in New Orleans August 1 last. That's not correct. He arrived in New Orleans September 4 last. Thornley stated, so why would he lie about that? Why would he say he got to New Orleans August 1st when he got there September 4th? Why, Kerry? Why are you lying to us? Thornley made trip alone and emphatically denied that Oswald accompanied him from New Orleans to California or from California to Mexico. See, here's the deal. Kerry Thornley leaves May 1962, just like he said here. He goes from New Orleans to Whittier, California. But guess what? To get there, he goes through Mexico City. He goes from New Orleans through Texas to Mexico, down to Mexico City, and then goes up to Whittier, California. And guess what? When he leaves at the end of August and returns to September 4th to New Orleans, he did the same thing. He left Whittier, California. And, he might have been in another city just south of Whittier at the time, because I guess the last 2 months he was there, he had gotten a job at a restaurant. But then he leaves there and he goes down again by fucking bus through Mexico City, hangs out, and then on his way he goes back to New Orleans. And then, see, this was prep for his impersonation of Oswald in Mexico City. And then on September the 26th, he will cross the border, and September 27th, he'll be back in Mexico City posing as Oswald. So Oswald can be placed in New Orleans during this period. He stated he did not know Oswald was in New Orleans in 1963, and that Oswald never contacted or attempted to contact him. Page 3, Los Angeles, at El Toro Marine Base, attempt to identify Charles Weir and interview him regarding his knowledge of Oswald. Previous lead has been set out to interview Bud A. Simcoe, Orange, California. All right, that's document number 2. Document number 3, date 8/13/1993, page 1. HSCA, agency file number 012260. It's an interesting file number. Agency record number 180-10097-10296. Document information, originator, citizen, from Buddy A. Simcoe, 9/29/78. Pages 3. Document type letter, unclassified, opened in full. Date of last review 6/23/93. 4 copies addressed to different members of HSCA, Box 218. JFK routing slip, number 012260, date 10/3/78. Incoming correspondence from Buddy A. Simcoe. So Buddy Allen Simcoe, that's not his birth name. He assumed the name of his adoptive father. So I don't even know what Buddy Simcoe's original name was. 29th September 78 from Buddy Simcoe, San Francisco, California. 2, Representative Louis Stokes, Chairman, and Samuel Devine, HSCA. Dear Sir, I've been following the live radio coverage of the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Finally, I thought there would be a public airing of all questions and aspects of the JFK assassination. It is with this in mind that I would like to raise 2 points. First is the issue of the Alchins UPI photograph taken in Dealey Plaza as President Kennedy was reacting to his first wound. Oh, good observation, Simcoe. Almost no people point out the fact that Kennedy has already been shot in the Alchins photo. You can see through the windshield he's grabbing his throat, and that is way before we see it in the Zapruder film. First is the issue of the Alchins photo. This photograph was considered in your hearings on Monday, 9/25/78. In this photograph, a figure very definitely resembling Lee Harvey Oswald is seen peeking around the doorway at the Texas School Book Depository. The figure looks like the same Oswald I knew briefly as a fellow Marine in MACS 9 at Santa Ana in 1959, and the same Oswald as per photographs taken of him after his arrest in Dallas. All right, so what do we have here so far? We're confirming that he knew the same person who was arrested as the person who was in MACS 9, which is Harvey Oswald, not Lee Oswald. Clearly the Algins photo is Billy Lovelady, not Oswald. All right, but we'll play along. I'm aware the Warren Commission identified this figure as Billy Lovelady. Several months ago, I also became aware of other photographs taken that same day, which show Billy Lovelady had that day he had a beard and was wearing a red and black plaid shirt at the same time. This information is published and therefore I assumed was known to the Select Committee on Assassination, as is one of the items to be explored in response to the critics of the Warren Report. This I thought could finally be confirmed or otherwise explained in view of the fact that the figure in the photograph has no beard and that the shirt is not a broad plaid pattern. In fact, it looks exactly like the shirt Oswald had on when arrested and photographed. Very narrow crisscross pattern. So finally, on Monday, 9/25/78, we heard testimony relating to this photograph, i.e. a forensic anthropological expert who stated the panel of experts determined that it was a probable, not positive, conclusion that the Warren Report was correct in identifying this figure as Lovelady, not Oswald. This was due in large part to the incipient lateral balding, which was said to be more apparent in Lovelady compared to Oswald. Not a word was said about the other published photographs and information, correct or incorrect, with Lovelady in a beard and different type shirt. Not a single word. Not only was this very significant point not resolved, it was not even acknowledged. The second, and even more important item I would like to mention concerns the apparent omission of any reference to information contained in the book written by a former CIA contract employee, Robert Morrow, which was published in 1976 by Warner Press, New York, entitled Betrayal. Actually, I have that book sitting right in front of me, and I haven't read it yet. Mr. Morrow has very relevant first-hand information regarding his high-level CIA-related activities commencing in 1961 and continuing through 1963. I cannot imagine that this information is not known to members of the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Mr. Morrow's account of events leading up to the JFK assassination, if substantiated, answers so much of the unanswered questions that the Select Committee of Assassinations ostensibly is now trying to resolve. More specifically, such things as who directed the JFK assassination, who participated as the actual mechanics in the operation. He names names. The weapons and ammunitions used, actually purchased by Mr. Morrow, I highly doubtful, and how they related to the Oswald rifle, as well as the motive for the operation on how Oswald was used as a patsy, are just some of the points on which Mr. Morrow provided information. He also provides information relating to the General Walker shooting incident and the murder of Officer Tippit. If Mr. Morrow's account is correct, one can understand how the pristine magic bullet was a plant, and yet matched with other fragments in the recent ballistic lithium drift analysis. His account explains the Oswald Mexico trip. You know something? No, it doesn't. I promise you, unless he names Kerry Thornley as the man who went there, he got it fucking wrong. I hate when people praise and re-reference people who got things wrong. Oswald was flown to Canada after he crossed into Mexico. The pilot's named David. This is all nonsense. The pilot's named David Ferry, while someone else took his papers with his signature to the Cuban embassy. Later, he was flown back to Mexico, reclaimed his papers, and crossed back into the United States. This account explains how all of Oswald's document signatures are legitimate, but why his photograph was not taken at the embassy by surveillance cameras. He was not there. Mr. Morrow was briefed on Oswald's mission for the CIA to Russia by a General Cabell, who was then directing some segments of CIA activities. This was while Oswald was still in the Soviet Union. Mr. Morrow claims he personally flew out of Europe with information from Oswald with a tourist contact prior to Oswald's leaving the USSR and returning to the United States. The story goes on and on. Finally, Mr. Morrow reveals why he waited so long to come forward publicly with this information. He also states he could not reveal all of what he knows in this book, Betrayal, because of the national security, but he would testify to all he knows in a closed session. As I indicated earlier, it is inconceivable that the members of the House Select Committee on Assassinations are not aware of Mr. Morrow and what he has to say, particularly when a letter from the former chairman, Representative Thomas Downing, is published at the front of the book. It is particularly disturbing to note that complete omission of any reference to Mr. Morrow's evidence and account so far by the House Select Committee on Assassinations. One wonders about this selectivity of the issues being covered. In closing, let me say that Representative Richardson Pryor's remarks on national television on Sunday, 9/24/78, were interesting in that he stated that 80% of the American people do not believe the Warren Commission report, that he is hopeful that after December this will be reversed and that 80% of the public will believe the Warren report. It would seem that some have made up their minds in advance without considering or disclosing all pertinent facts. I am not so naive as to believe that just because someone published a book that is gospel. It's up to others to determine the veracity of such information. This is what I thought the current hearings were all about, i.e. to examine all aspects of the JFK assassination and new information evidence relating thereto. For a time, it seemed hopeful that finally a complete examination of the entire matter was in the offing. I continue to hope that that will not take another 15 years to lay the matter to rest. Respectfully, Buddy Allen Simcoe. Buddy Allen Simcoe, 447 26th Avenue, number 4, San Francisco, 94121. That brings this one to a close. All right. Next one. Date 8/17/93, page 1, HSCA, record number 180, 10111, 10063. Agency file number 012521, HSCA, Buddy Allen Simcoe to Louis Stokes. Another letter from Mr. Simcoe. Memorandum, unclassified, opened in full. Contained within box number 222. October 16th, 1978, to Mr. Buddy Allen Simcoe. Mr. Simcoe, thank you for your letter of September 29th, 78 and your interest in the work of the Select Committee. Let me assure you that your letter has been brought to the attention of those people directly involved in the investigation of the assassination of President Kennedy for their use. The committee is grateful for your comments and those of many other concerned citizens who have taken the time to write. Then we have a cover sheet, outgoing correspondence to Buddy Simcoe. And then it just has a recap of the letter that was sent. So, all right, good stuff. Next one, dated 8/20/93, page 1. Looks like another letter. Is this the same letter? I hope not. Index, Buddy Allen Simcoe, leads and info. And yes, this is just another copy of that same letter with some additional notations on it. All right, next one, dated 12/1/93. Agency, SSCIA. Record number 157-10003, 10011. Originator, FBI. Title, Interview with Buddy Simcoe. Date, 000063, so it's undated. Subjects, Buddy Allen Simcoe, Marine Corps, and Lee Harvey Oswald. Date of last review, 12/1/93. The following information was conducted by SAs Jerome Meinert and Philip Hanlon at Santa Ana, California. Buddy Allen Simcoe was located at 426 Linwood Street, Santa Ana, on November 25th, 1963, and advised that in early 58, this is the second time he's saying early 58 here, but it wasn't early 58, or was it? Early 58, Oswald was in fucking Philippines, so it should be 59. In 1959, he was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps, MACS number 9, at the Marine Corps Air Facility, MCAF, in Santa Ana, as a radar operator, but worked at the squadron office in general administration. He advised that there were about 80. So Buddy Simcoe was a radar operator, but when he got to Santa Ana, he worked in administration. He worked in the squadron administration office. All right, keep that in mind. He advised there were about 80 men in this unit and that Lee Harvey Oswald was in S-3 operations of MACS number 9 as a radar operator. He advised he was not a personal friend of Oswald's and could not recall any conversations with him. He added, however, it was common knowledge that Oswald was studying Russian at the time, reason unknown to Simcoe. He related Oswald allegedly had fair knowledge of Russian. At one time, he witnessed Oswald practicing Russian with a tape recorder. He stated that he vaguely recalled that Oswald subscribed to some Russian literature in the Russian language, but could not be more specific. Simcoe stated Oswald received this literature, which was mailed to him through the squadron office, and it upset Lieutenant Michael DePadro. Simcoe stated it was reported to him that Oswald told the lieutenant it was just to practice Russian, and that DePadro's present whereabouts to him is not known. Simcoe described Oswald as self-contained, self-sufficient, and he appeared to have no close associates. In July 59, Simcoe related that Simcoe, went to Japan with another Marine, Kerry Thornley. See, so Simcoe was with Kerry Thornley this whole time. So Kerry Thornley gets to MACS 9. Buddy Simcoe does. And then both of them go to Atsugi, Japan. And then from Atsugi, Japan, both of them get out of them. Thornley gets out of the Marines, but Simcoe stays in for a little while longer. It appears to me that if anybody was an intelligence handler, it was Buddy Simcoe. More work needs to be done into Lieutenant Ballantyne, and I will get to that as soon as I get done with the Marguerite shit. While there, Simcoe recalled reading an article in the Stars and Stripes service newspaper in early 1960, which said something like L.H. Oswald, former Marine, had gone to Russia to defect or give up his U.S. citizenship. Thornley at that time indicated he had known Oswald in MACS 9 at MACF Santa Ana, but apparently did not know him any better than Simcoe. See, Kerry Thornley's a fucking liar. Kerry Thornley has said multiple times different things about where he was when he found out about Oswald. Remember, Oswald did that stuff in October of 59, which is the first inferences of it. And that's when Thornley says that he found out about it, but it's not the case. Thornley appeared very interested at this time as to why Oswald went to Russia. Simcoe related Thornley got out of the Marine Corps in 1960 and resides at 1824 Dauphine Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Simcoe did not know whether Thornley and Oswald had any contact in New Orleans. Simcoe stated that his friend Larry Dawson has a brother, James W. Pritchett, a patrolman on the Dallas or Grand Prairie, Texas Police Department. Simcoe stated he called Pritchett Saturday, November 23rd and furnished him with his above information of Oswald. Simcoe stated another individual who may have known Oswald in MACS 9 was Irwin Don Lewis, 9682 Mystic Lane, Anaheim, California. But Simcoe, could furnish no further information. And that's the last of these 6 documents. So let me reemphasize, ladies and gentlemen, the thing to take from this are names. Names, nothing more. Names that need to be cross-referenced. Because here we go. We have a statement of Buddy Simcoe saying that he called a patrolman named James Pritchett, who was in Grand Prairie or Dallas. That James Pritchett undoubtedly phoned the Dallas police and the FBI to report what he had gotten. And that information I've never heard of or seen. If anyone's ever heard or seen James W. Pritchett in reference to Buddy Simcoe in the Dallas Police Department or Grand Prairie Police Department, please let me know, but I don't think so. Why not? Why do we have to FOIA this kind of shit, right? That tells me that one of these names in here is significant, and only one of the names. Nothing else, really. So, but let me see. It's 42 minutes in. Let's call it for today. We'll do a part 2 on this one tomorrow, and we'll read from Tripping Down Memory Lane by Buddy Allen Simcoe, and then after we get done with that, we'll go back to Lillian Moret's Warren Commission testimony. So that's it for me, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.